All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host, Jake Ellenbogen. And guys, we are coming to you after a Rams loss in Green Bay on Monday Night Football to the Packers, 12-24. It was a cold game. It was, I think, the coldest game of the year so far. Obviously, playing in Green Bay in the winter, it's pretty much always going to be cold, but this game was extra cold. Definitely could see the pain, especially at the beginning of the game, on the players' faces. And guys, it just really wasn't a fun game to watch. We're going to dive into that game a little bit. However, we're just going to rip off the Band-Aid. This loss eliminated the Rams from playoff contention for the year. The Rams are officially out. No chance to make the playoffs. So that makes the loss all that much worse. And because of that, guys, what we're going to do is we are going to talk a little bit about the game, and then we are going to talk about kind of where the Rams stand at this point going into next season. We're not going to obviously do a deep dive on everything that the Rams need to do in the offseason or the rest of the season, but we do want to touch on it because our mindset, and Jake, I'll let you talk about this as well, is kind of, it's obviously beyond the season. I mean, we're going to watch the rest of the season, obviously. We do watch every game. We are going to comment on it, still come out with episodes, but it's now there's a bigger picture. Now the bigger picture goes beyond, what are the Rams going to do the rest of the season, but it's what are the Rams going to do for the rest of the season that helps prepare them for next season. How do you evaluate players? In my opinion, I think that a lot of this goes into watching these games. You're looking for who's going to stay and who's going to go. It sounds kind of dark, but that is the case. When you're in a situation like the Rams are in, there's probably going to be a little rebuilding. I wouldn't say they're going to go into a rebuild, but they're going to clean house. So Jake, let's start with this Packers game that the Rams played on Monday night. What was your overall impression of this game?
Well, I hated it.
Same.
Yeah, Alexis, I mean, I don't know about you, but I thought they were going to win, but I wasn't going to be shocked if they lost. Sean McVay has not beaten Matt LaFleur yet, since he's taken over as the head coach of the Packers. So, I wasn't going to be shocked if they lost this game. But the thing that bothers me about this game is that I think they had every opportunity to win it. You go up against a top three, bottom three, that's a better word, bottom three run defense, and you run the ball 14 times with your running backs, 14 times, and I get on Cam Akers and you and I'll point out things like he missed that hole, whatnot. Still 12 carries for 65 yards. Am I super, super high on Cam Akers? No, but why did you abandon the run like that? I don't know. Baker Mayfield, not really trusting him to throw deep down the field. Too many of the deep drop backs, too many. You didn't establish the run, you abandoned the run, and then you're doing play action without having, an offensive line to keep you upright. I don't really know what Sean McVay was doing, honestly. I mean, we talked about it, you and I. We texted about it, and I just got to say, I mean, this was one of the worst games I've seen from this offense. I mean, it's the lowest yard total for a Rams offense since 2017 under Sean McVay. And I just feel like at this point, I understand the offensive line isn't very good. I understand they're banged up, but I'm tired of the excuses. I'm tired of being okay with just straight up below mediocrity. I mean, any sort of average offense wins this ball game, Alexis. I mean, this is a team that we've said it before, and I'll say it again. This team going into the fourth quarter has been in every single game this year, despite the fact they have a historically terrible offense. That defense has been stretched so thin. They're playing guys like Michael Hoyt, a 310-pounder that was a interior defensive lineman that they got as a UDFA out of Brown. And now all of a sudden he's starting at outside linebacker. He's covering Romeo Doubs last night, which is insane, speaks great to his athleticism. But Alexis, this is what we're talking about, is this defense continues to get stretched. They continue to have injuries. They're playing without Aaron Donald, and they continue to fight, and they are constantly going to be thrown under the bus for bend don't break and giving up the touchdowns. But they get the nice stop on third down. Flag comes in. Now they have to stop them again. Touchdown, Green Bay. The bend don't break did work, and honestly, it would have put the Rams at 10-4 right now. You could totally flip, the standing. Maybe even they have more wins than that, because the bend don't break defense has absolutely worked. It's just lacked in offense, and unfortunately, this is not something I expected. Coming into the year, Alexis, that we'd be talking about, but Sean McVay's play calling, and I understand the injuries were an issue. I understand the offensive line is an issue, but it doesn't just mean that you can't have any success. These are incredibly, this season, offensively, play calling wise, is just so below expectations. They're below my expectations for a nightmare season. I mean, we're talking 14, 15 points a game. That's just not acceptable. I mean, look at what Kyle Shanahan is doing with Brock Purdy, who was the, Mr. Irrelevant. Look at what other, offensive coordinators are able to do with less. And you want to tell me that Van Jefferson isn't enough at wide receiver because Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson are out? Van Jefferson is a good receiver. Is he, a superstar? No, he's in his third year. Atwell showed you that he could make some plays. Ben Skoranek showed you. Tyler Higbee has had a little bit of a disappearing act this year at times, but earlier in the season, he was playing great ball. You look at what they have at left tackle in Ty Nsekhe. I mean, he's allowed in 250 snaps or something like that. He's only allowed 1 sack, 2 pressures. The guy's been everything you could ask for off the blind side. So what is the issue? And why is it that they can't run quick slants? Why is it they can't run sprint outs, bootlegs to the right side, not having Baker go against his body with no time, having to run around? I'm talking just straight up naked bootlegs, very simple. Why can't they do that? I think the reason, Alexis, and this game opened up my eyes pretty quickly. No, last week was not a resurgence. The Rams are not having, a really great end to their season. It's not, Mayfield magic or anything like that. And it's not Mayfield's fault. What it comes down to is the reason they beat the Raiders, the reason they had success with Baker Mayfield, is because Sean McVay was put in a very weird position where he had a quarterback that didn't know the offense and had to call a completely different game. And he didn't overthink things. Notice a full week, and they don't even look like the same offense that we saw last week. I understand, there are different things, and they're, obviously have the injury to Brian Allen, but Alexis, this team looked better with Baker Mayfield on 1 day of practice than they looked with Baker Mayfield on a week of practice. And that is a concern of mine.
I tweeted that out at the end of the game yesterday. I was like, it's weird that Baker Mayfield looks more unsettled with 10 days of practice and study with the Rams than he did with less than 48 hours. And a lot of that, I think, has to go into the play calling. Jake, here's the thing. At this point, I think it's become pretty apparent. I understand that the Rams have had injuries this season, okay? It's been horrendous. That is obvious. Everybody knows that. But honestly, even if we did not have all of these injuries, okay, even if nobody got hurt, with the way that this play calling is going and the scheme is going, dare I say we might not even be much better. I know that sounds crazy, but it's the truth. I don't think that the injuries are what's holding us back the most. It might be a 50-50 split. I mean, Jake, it's truly been the stalest offense I've seen maybe from any team in a while. It's been the most unpredictable. It's been
very predictable. I think that's a big issue.
Predictable. I mean, yes. Yeah. Predictable. It's unpredictable in a sense. I didn't expect this from Sean McVay. I should have worded that better. But you just wouldn't expect a team coming off a Super Bowl to change their play calling this drastically. And again, people say, oh, well, he's doing it because of the injuries. But here's the thing, like you mentioned earlier, you've seen when Sean McVay's back is against the wall this season, he has made, some pretty good play calls when he isn't overthinking it. And you have seen guys like step up. Like, here's the thing, like Van Jefferson is a good receiver. Ben Skoranek has shown he's a good receiver. Tutu Atwell has shown that he's, dare I say, a good receiver. You've seen Cam Akers. We'll talk a little bit about the run game because that's an interesting topic, but Cam Akers has played better as the season has gone on. So it's not like Sean McVay has zero weapons, because he does have weapons, and he's shown. Look at the game against the Raiders. We talked about this when we talked about the win against the Raiders. Like, every receiver stepped up and made big plays. And I understand that the Raiders are different than the Packers. Okay, I get that. I think that the Packers have a better secondary. I think that obviously the conditions were different. One game is at SoFi Stadium indoors, the other is in 5-degree weather in Wisconsin. So I understand there's some variables there that make the game different. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know why Sean McVay is so hot and cold, and nothing is consistent. I don't think it's the injuries anymore. I don't know. It's very, very concerning. Like I said, I still think even with a healthy team, his play calling would be holding the Rams back. Would it be a playoff team? I would hope so. However, I don't think we'd be seeing the type of football that we saw last year. I think it's been very, very bizarre. Now, let's talk about the run game, because this has been a problem for a while. I think, again, this has nothing to do with injuries, Jake. This has to do, we've been screaming, you and me, Rams fans have been screaming about the run game for 3 years now. So we haven't been satisfied with it. But here's the thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about Cam Akers. And here's the thing. You and I like Cam Akers, and people think that we don't like him because we're concerned with,
I did say on here that I didn't like him, but it's not that I dislike him.
Right. We don't I like Cam. Okay. I'll just speak for myself. Like, I like him. I'm confused by a few things. Okay. I'm confused why he himself is such an inconsistent runner. Okay. I get that he had some good runs last night, but here's the thing. And a lot of people also pointed this out, but I'm going to reiterate it. Cam will have a really good run. And then the next few runs, he'll run right into the back of an offensive lineman or a defender. And then he'll have another really good run. And here's the thing, it's so hot and cold that it's not really normal for a running back of the NFL to do that, because what it is it's not he has the ability to make good runs. It's not that he doesn't have the ability. It's his vision.
Big time.
It's like, if you don't have a perfect lane for him, he's not going to go find another lane, or he's just not going to make the run. It doesn't make sense. So it's kind of it's kind of frustrating to watch, because it's like you kind of have to not hand it to him, but it's got to be the right situation. He's not going to make things happen in a sense. But when he does have the run, I'm very impressed with the way he runs. You saw it last night, making guys miss, the speed, it's all there. All of those are positive attributes. But Jake, here's what I guess my question would be. We didn't run the ball much last night. I don't think that has anything to do with Cam. I think that, again, sadly has to do with the play calling. But why is Cam Akers getting 99% of the carries when you have Kyron Williams and you have Malcolm Brown? But it's really not about Malcolm Brown. But I don't understand, why is Sean McVay obsessed with giving Cam Akers 99% of the runs?
I'm not really sure.
Is he trying to prove a point?
It's
because it comes off to me like he's trying to prove a point. I know that he got a lot of heat for the Akers pick, and then Akers had the whole kind of drama and everything like that, and the Rams decided to stick with him over Henderson. So is he just I am going to absolutely run the you-know-what out of this man and put him in 99% of the time? I don't care if people don't like it. It is only going to be him. Or is it I don't trust Kyron Williams yet? Is it, what is it? Because I would like to see Kyron Williams run the ball more. I also feel yes, Cam is having good runs, but he's also having a lot that are frustrating to watch. Am I overthinking it? Is it just Sean McVay being well, we have one running back, and that's Cam?
I think it gives.
It could be.
It gives too much credit to Sean McVay that he would even have a plan. I mean, I love the guy. I know it's hard for people to realize because I'm incredibly critical of him. I'm critical of him because we've seen, when this guy is at his best, they win the Super Bowl. They go 14-2, or they go, 11-5, or they go 13-3, or last year 12-5. Like, that is what Sean McVay is to me. So when I see seasons like this, I do think the injuries led to the poor play calling, Alexis. So I do somewhat disagree with you there. I think this year would have been completely different if they had, a normal offense and everything. I just think Sean McVay overthinks things. And even when the options are right in front of him, he starts off the season with Darrell Henderson, has some good runs against the Bills, albeit that defense is great against the run. So he did not have a great game by yards per carry average standards, but you saw throughout the year, Henderson stayed healthy. Henderson was great in the pass protection game. They lose Kyron on a stupid play where he shouldn't have been on special teams, that they were going to, actually feature him. So they lose him first game of the year. So then all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, Henderson's role is going to expand. No, then Cam Akers all of a sudden gets, injected in there. And then, oh, by the way, now we're going to go back to Henderson. Cam needs some time away from the team, whether he quit on the team or whether Sean McVay, send him away. I don't know what happened. I kind of believe the former. But that's just me. You bring in Malcolm Brown. That's great. Nice reunion. Brown is not the same player he was the last time he was on the Rams. He was a liability last night in pass pro. He missed a chip block that led to a Rob Havenstein blow up, I guess, and gave up the sack. I mean, if Malcolm Brown isn't doing his job in pass pro, why is he out there? What about Ronnie Rivers?
Yeah.
Where the hell did he go? I think all of this really just points to the fact that Sean McVay does not know how to manage the run game. He had Todd Gurley early on in his coaching career with the Rams, 17, 18, and 19. And 19, Gurley started falling off the face of the earth, and Sean McVay didn't have a response. They drafted Darrell Henderson, didn't really use him a lot that year. The next year, they use him in a trio with him, Malcolm Brown, and Cam Akers. 2021, right before the season, in the offseason, Akers tears his Achilles. So then it is Darrell Henderson. They trade for Sony Michel. It's mainly the Darrell Henderson show. Then they get Sony Michel involved. Then it becomes the Sony Michel show. And then at the end of the year, Sony Michel is only getting 2 carries in the Super Bowl. And now it's the Cam Akers show with 1.9 per carry average and a pass protection rep where you blocked Andrew Whitworth on the first drive of the game, forcing a sack by the Cincinnati Bengals. But my point, Alexis, in bringing all this up is just to show you that, again, Sean McVay does not manage the run game well. He is an outstanding offensive schemer. He knows how to draw up plays. And you would think with his total recall and how he just has this photographic memory, he talks about all the time. We've seen him on podcasts and whatnot. He can recall the exact play he ran in high school to beat, a certain team or whatever. But the fact is, Alexis, is that his play calling can be very good, but he overthinks just about everything. Do you know why the Rams beat the Bengals? Because they were put in a position where Sean McVay had to react and not think. He had to react. They lost Odell. They went through a dry spell. But what it came down to is he had to react in the moment. He had to coach in the moment instead of letting the moment overcome him. When you look at the 2 weeks he had to prepare for the first Super Bowl, you know that guy probably had the perfect game plan on how to beat the Patriots. But Sean McVay overthought it. And you could tell in that scheme when Todd Gurley's only getting the ball, 10 times in that game? CJ Anderson, who was dominant throughout the playoffs, barely touches the ball. It all goes back to Sean McVay not managing the run game well. And so I think we're at a crossroads where McVay might not want to, but I think in order for him to really ascend to become the best coach in the NFL and to have no arguments and to reach his full potential, he is going to need to give up the offensive play calling. Keep him as the guy that schemes it up, okay? He absolutely knows what he's doing with that. But the play calling, he struggled this year mightily. He struggled in the past. This is not a team that blows teams out even at their best. We've seen that. even at the Rams' best. I mean, I don't think last year's team was better than 2018's team. You know, I just think last year's team was good enough to win a Super Bowl, had the talent, and Sean McVay had the experience where he learned from his mistakes from the 2018 team. But I'm at that point, Alexis. I think he needs to hire a legit offensive coordinator and take over the play calling. I think they need a philosophical switch where they're going back to how they used Todd Gurley. They need to find that running back that can do it all. And if it's not Kyron, then they need to figure it out, because it's gotten to the point where, you know, we're sitting here and it's bubble screen to Brandon Powell. It's bubble screen to Tyler Higbee. It's a slip screen to Malcolm Brown. I mean, it's the same thing. And there's no quick slants, Alexis. There's no sprint outs. There's no quick outs. They don't even use Bryson Hopkins. They've turned one of the best receiving tight ends in the draft in 2020 into a basically a predominantly blocking tight end. He doesn't even look like the same player. So it's just, they need a philosophical switch. And I'm hoping that this season, if we take away anything from it, it's going to push him in the direction where, hey, you know what? This isn't working. And to be honest with you, it's very similar to their Super Bowl offense as well, after OBJ. So, you know, I just think that they're trying to do too many things and not doing anything at the same time. And they've become very, very, very predictable, to the point where you see defenses on third down just basically playing, you know, they have two guys on the first down marker. They have everybody up front. They're not scared of this team. No one's scared of this offense, because Baker gave them hope last week, but then Baker learned the offense and now they're predictable again. When they were scary, when they were unpredictable, the Raiders didn't have any of that on film. They're doing stuff we're like, why weren't they doing that before? And then instead it's back to the 5-7 step dropbacks. And yeah, that's just the issue, Alexis, is just they're very predictable. And it's why we spend so much time talking about the offense in this podcast and not the defense, because you could say what you will about the defense. Jalen Ramsey didn't have his best season, but even still, if you told me that Jalen Ramsey was going to have his worst season of his career and this defense was still going to be a top 10 defense, I would have said you were nuts. But here we are.
Well, last thing about the offense, should we be worried about Kyron Williams then? And I'm only asking this because I have become, you know, people ask me about him all the time. You know, they want to know what the deal is. And I am saying kind of what you've been saying, like, I don't think it's him. It's not Kyron Williams. It's just that Sean McVay is not in tune with the run game. And when he is, Akers is his guy. And, you know, it is unfortunate because, you know, you mentioned kind of the mismanagement of McVay with running backs. And I very much don't want that to happen to Kyron Williams. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of him. I think he's a lot of potential. You talk about a running back who can do it all.
I mean, I think we're looking at Henderson all over.
We have tape.
If you want my brutally honest opinion,
and that's unfortunate.
I think we're looking at Darrell Henderson 2.0, and that he does everything you need him to. He's there. He's already had some injuries, so people are questioning how durable he is, even though that wasn't the case in college. But yeah, you know, the guy that can pass protect, help you in the receiving game, is being overlooked by the more sexier back, the bigger back, maybe the faster back. And I don't think necessarily Cam Akers is going to be the Cam Akers in this story. I think whoever they draft this year, I kind of have a feeling they're going to draft somebody in the second round. And I think that's a mistake. I don't think the running backs are that big of an issue, because once you have a healthy offensive line that you plan on going into the season with, and you have these running backs, I think people will come to realize, and this kind of goes for the receiver room, people will come to realize they have a lot of talent. I mean, Kyron Williams is a 5th rounder just because of the 40 time. We talked about before, he could have been a day 2 pick easily. So they have plenty of talent. I mean, maybe not Malcolm Brown. He's past, you know, his prime. You know, Cam Akers is kind of showing you some things. Imagine what he could do maybe if you had a better offensive line. You know, even the Tutu Atwell, Brandon Powell, you know, combination in the backfield, and then seeing what Ronnie Rivers has. But basically what I'm saying is that I think it is not a Kyron issue. It is a user issue. It's a user issue, just like it was a user issue with Atwell when I was on this same podcast, Alexis, and I was telling you, I just don't think they know how to use Atwell. And I know you kind of, you know, push back a little bit. Where are you on that now? Do you kind of see where I'm coming from, or do you know?
my opinion on Atwell has changed. I still think I stand by what I said, that he's a very specific type of, you have to use him a very specific way. I'm not saying that's bad, but he's not a receiver, where you can kind of move him around a lot. I think what we've seen with Atwell, it was like, I joked about it on Twitter. That pass that Baker Mayfield threw to him in the end zone where he had two defenders. He had one kind of behind him, and he had one coming like that was slanting towards him. The play that I'm talking about, where he was essentially in double coverage, where I think Baker thought that Atwell would go one way and he didn't, or whatever. And I made a joke about it, and I was like, if you're going to throw to a receiver in double coverage like that and try to make them make that play, it's not going to be him. Okay, that's like a Skoranek or maybe a Van Jefferson like type of play. I think that Tutu Atwell is very good at what he is built for. He's a burner. You see him make those plays where he will blow. In fact, he had one last night in the game. Baker Mayfield just underthrew it. The one that I think it was the first quarter where.
Are you talking about the penalty?
I don't know if it was Alexander.
Yeah, I think that was
maybe.
later in the game.
Yes, it was the. No, I thought that there was also a play in the first quarter. There might have
been. I mean, that game.
Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. Well, the penalty. So talk about the penalty. Yes, you know what? You're right. It was the penalty, because the announcer even said, he was like, had Baker not underthrown that, Atwell would have had a touchdown. He ended up drawing the penalty because it was underthrown, so it was kind of bittersweet because it was underthrown.
And that's
he had to turn
Atwell
around,
knowing how
and then
to
that ended
draw
up drawing
that penalty too, because he did that in college.
And so the thing with Atwell is, I think he's very good at being kind of like that Deshaun Jackson-esque receiver. But so my opinion has changed. I think that he is very good for that role, but I stand by everything that I said on the type of receiver that he is. I think it's good to have Tutu Atwell, though, as a complement to guys like Ben Skoranek or like Van Jefferson or like Cooper Kupp. And Jake, let's kind of talk about, let's switch, because part of this episode we want to be talking about what the Rams' outlook for the rest of the season is. Something I want to touch on about the receiving core is this is a positive, guys, that we've seen from this season. I think there has been a few, but here's a positive. I am very comfortable going into next season with the receiving core of Kupp, Van Jefferson, Skoranek, and Atwell. Who's missing? Allen Robinson. I think what we've seen with the emergence of these other receivers is, I don't think that Allen Robinson is on this team next year, and I'm pretty sure that you agree with me on this because we've talked about it. We have seen that we can use all of those guys in this offense, and I think that that's a very solid group of 4 receivers there, and I don't really see where Allen Robinson fits in that scheme of things, which is bittersweet because I think Allen Robinson's obviously a great guy. I think he's a good player, but that's a really nice receiving core to have. And I think they all complement each other very well. Like I said, very different receivers, right? Just look at Skoranek and Atwell. Okay. Just compare them two, right? Totally different types of receivers, both very effective. I mean, you look at the Raiders game, we got to see them shine in completely different ways with Baker Mayfield. I thought that was pretty positive. So to loop that all around, sorry, I went on a tangent because there's so many things I want to talk about. I'm trying to stay on track because it's we've now moved into the off season, as dark as that sounds. So I'm just talking now about what it could look like next season. But yeah, I've been impressed with Tutu Atwell. I think people should cut back on the slack, or should cut him some slack. And I also think people should cut Ben Skoranek some slack too. I mean, guys, I understand that these aren't guys that maybe you thought were going to be good receivers, or, whatever your issue was with them. But I see them getting a lot of hate on Twitter, and I don't understand why, because I think they both stepped up.
I'm really bummed that he got hurt. I think this was a really good opportunity for a guy like Skoranek. Not really as worried about Brian Allen because, one, he hasn't been able to stay healthy anyway. But 2, he's already gotten plenty of reps. This was an opportunity for Skoranek to finish out the year strong, and I hate that for him Because, I mean, Alexis, I feel like there are going to be guys that are at the receiver spot to end this season that might not be on the team next year. I mean, Austin Trammell, do you think he's on the 53 next year? I do not. Nothing against him, probably in the practice squad, but I don't know. It's one of those things, losing Skoranek for the year that really sucks, going to your point. I want to ask you a question though. Okay. We talk about Robinson, and I think we were probably the first podcast to put that out there that, we kind of feel like Robinson was a 1-year thing the way it's looked. Cause I don't think that wasn't really being talked about until we said something. So I'm going to ask you this question. Okay. I think, at least from my perspective, I think the Rams end up with a former Ram at wide receiver to replace him. I think it's either going to be Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, or OBJ. Do you agree? And if you do, who would be that receiver to replace Allen Robinson?
I don't agree. Because like I said, I think the Rams like that. What would you call a group of four? Quad, whatever, group of four, with, I really can't think of a word. I don't know if there is one. I was going to say trio, but it's not a trio. It's four. I think that they like Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Ben Skoranek, and Tutu Atwell. I think that's a pretty solid group. I can understand adding a fifth. Again, wide receivers can get hurt, as we've seen as Rams fans the past couple of seasons. So it's always good to go deeper. I do think that might be more of a draft thing. They've got McCutcheon too, who I think they really like. So we'll see. I don't see OBJ coming back to the team if Baker Mayfield's here. That will not be happening. Brandon Cooks, is he a free agent next season? I thought
Brandon
he wasn't.
Cooks would
that would
be
have to be a trade situation.
And Robert Woods, I think, is a prime cut candidate because John Robinson, the GM, ended up stepping down, or he got let go, and that was like a big money decision to take on that contract. So I think he could be a cap casualty. I also think Taylor Lewan could as well. So I think the Rams should be interested in both of them if they're gone.
Yeah, I would say if out of all those receivers you named, I think Woods would be the most likely, because I think Woods is probably at the point in his career where he could be kind of that veteran fifth guy. Saying fifth guy feels weird because that makes it sound like he won't get a lot of playing time. But sadly, I think that he would be the guy that maybe comes in, is willing to take kind of that step back.
I don't know.
And he already knows, obviously,
the way they alternate their guys,
offense.
I feel like it would be Kupp and whoever they get. Like I could see Kupp and Cooks with Van Jefferson alternating with Atwell and Skoranek.
I just feel like Cooks is such a risk, with his history. It's like, I just don't know, if you're if it were me and I was the Rams, I would not be super eager to go get a guy that is on his sixth concussion. I'm not saying that as a dig. I'm being genuine. I think you can look it up. He's already had 4 or 5 major concussions. So it's kind of and I just feel being in the position that the Rams have been in the past couple of seasons, it's
maybe they hang on Allen Robinson. We're wrong.
If I'm going to go
think
get
the money.
I mean, I could see that
brutal if you're only getting 300 something yards.
Well, that's the thing. Right. You're paying a lot for a guy who you're getting more. You got more this season out of Skoranek. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's I get it. I don't think that he's going to be around. I think he's a trade candidate or a cut candidate, but I don't know. I like I said, I think tight end is a bigger concern than wide receiver for the Rams for next season. I think as in terms of that, you already know that you have 4 solid receivers.
Skoranek did finish
Rams,
the season.
Right? None of those guys are free agents.
Yards than Allen Robinson. I mean, he played more games.
Well, right. So it's that's the thing. And Ben Skoranek at one point in the season was second or first in separation.
Yeah, he was second in yards of separation.
For a while, he was for 3 weeks or something, or 4 weeks, some absurd random stat. I remember that. But So no, I think tight end is a bigger concern because I think that you have those 4 guys at receiver. Obviously, like 4 guys, you have to have more people. Injuries can happen, whatever. But I
Yeah.
think that that you have that. Tight end, I think, is a question mark. I think Tyler Higbee had a really good start to the season, but he had a shocking
Yeah.
decline. I mean, so unless there's an injury or something going on that we don't know about, which could be the case because the
I feel
Rams
like
do like to hide injuries.
I'll tell you what, he lost that kind of hop in his step when I noticed it the most when Kupp got hurt. So I think there is an injury. And I think, what we don't see, because, we're not players and we're not, on the ground, like seeing these guys in person. But I think it's very possible, and I think it happens a lot that we don't even realize, where these guys see a big time player like Cooper Kupp go down. They're like, man, I got to step my game up. I can't be hurt. I just got to find a way through it. And I would say this. We don't know if that's the case, so I'm not trying to say it is or if it isn't. I'm not trying to say the Rams are hiding it because not every player even admits injury to their, the coaching staff and all that. But what I will say is, regardless of Tyler Higbee, regardless of Bryson Hopkins, and Bryson Hopkins had more catches in the Super Bowl than he has all year. They need to add another tight end, and I think it has to come through the draft. I think they have to develop one. You look at the Jets this past year, they signed 2 guys. They signed Conklin and they signed Uzama. They still draft, a tight end in, I think it was the 3rd, 4th round out of Ohio State. So it's just one of those things, they got Jeremy Rucker, developing him. It's that position that takes time. So I don't want to throw a tight end right away into the fire unless Michael Mayer's coming through the door, because I think that guy can play day one. But there are other guys where you look at, a Dalton Kincaid, or, you look at Tucker Kraft. Obviously, if he goes to the Rams, that's a jersey you're going to have.
No relation, by the way. I've already been asked that.
But
no
do you
relation,
think either of those guys could start day one? Because for me, I feel like they're a little bit below. They're a little bit below.
No, I think there's about 5 tight ends that I'm aware of. So there might be a little more that I think in the tight end class for next year. And obviously this could change because some people could go back to school, some could come out, but just based on consensus, Michael Mayer, I think is like borderline generational. I think he's obviously he's a freak. Like he's insane. And I know that as a Notre Dame fan, but also just look up any draft scout. I mean, he's broke all the Notre Dame records. He's just insane. He is a lock for the first round. I think he is the only first round tight end because I think after him, you've got maybe Darnell Washington, in Georgia. You've got Sam Laporta in Iowa. Luke Musgrave. But I'm concerned he has an injury kind of history already. So I could see him falling. Tucker Kraft. I think then you have those 4. And that's where I think you've got day 2 guys. And those are guys that I think probably could start. Okay, day 1, those might be, it depends on what team they go to. I could see them being drafted by a team that wants to develop them a little more. I think after them, it's kind of you've got more projects. So I think, like I said, this could change. This is just based on what I've seen. There's 5 guys those are the names that I see circulating the most. That will change. We're in December. The draft is in April, so it's going to change. I think the Rams, I could see them obviously I would love for them to get Michael Mayer. If Michael Mayer is there at the end of the first, I say just trade up and get him. That would be, he's insane. Okay. He's I said, I don't think that will happen. That's me projecting.
Well, if Eric Ebron and TJ Hawkinson went early first round, I think there's still room for a guy like him to go early first round. I could see him going top 10.
No, I think Michael Mayer is probably a top 15 pick. If not, then top 20. I don't think he's going to fall to 26 or 7 where I could see just pray that the Rams trade up. Right. So that's just me being delusional. But after him, I could see, if the Rams pick the Rams are right now, they're going to pick like early-ish second round. So I could see, if they want to go tight end, Darnell Washington, I would say, is probably the best bet. I think he's the second best tight end in the draft behind Michael Mayer. I could see them maybe if they want a guy who's going to contribute right away. If Sam Laporta falls to the early third,
Iowa tight end.
I like him a lot. Iowa, yep, that would be really fun. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's quite where, that like Darnell Washington is, but who knows? So I could see them doing that. I think the Rams aren't sold on Bryson Hopkins. Like I said, I know that like we've said, before, he stepped up in the Super Bowl, but they just haven't wanted to use him this season. So I don't know what that is, but if they're clearly telling us that they're out on Bryson Hopkins,
you got to read
it's only him
leaves.
and Tyler Higbee.
I mean, if he's not getting targets this season, let me rephrase that. If he doesn't have more catches than he did in the Super Bowl this season as the second and only one of two tight ends on the roster when Higbee clearly looks banged up and this offense isn't going anywhere, then there's no future there. And that's not necessarily on Hopkins. I just think it's another mismanagement thing.
I don't think it is. I think it's, you and I have talked about this on the show before. I think that the Rams have not handled some, draft prospects, really most, if I'm being honest, well. So I think Bryson Hopkins probably falls in that category, but it is what it is, right?
So I think more of a well-rounded tight end. He lost a lot of speed, and then now all of a sudden he's a blocking only tight end, and I think that's a very real possibility. That's what happened. I do also have to bring up, he got suspended for the abuse policy or whatever. So that probably could have put a little bit of a wrench into it. Maybe they had plans for him that kind of put him off, but regardless, it hasn't been great. Not for him. And I'm a fan of his. I hope that they figure it out with him, but I think at the very least, what we're talking about here, it's not necessarily Higbee's out the door, Hopkins is out the door, is that they're going to add another guy. Okay. I like Roger Carter on the practice squad. I think he's got some potential, but I think they definitely draft a tight end. I haven't gone super into the tight ends yet, Alexis. As you know, I just got into the draft, just spent pretty much all night, typing up my database. So, don't have any hands anymore. But I will say Cameron Latu of Alabama, if he does come out, because I think he still has another year of eligibility. If he does come out, he's very intriguing to me. I think he's a guy that you can get in like the 4th, 5th round. I know they don't have a 4th round pick, but you get him in the middle of the draft, and I think he'll be a nice addition there. It doesn't have to be an overwhelmingly huge move. Mayer goes in the top 15. Then you have guys like Washington and Kincaid. I think at the top of the second.
Kincaid, yes, I forgot.
I just don't know if they're in a position to draft a tight end that early. If they're going to hang on to Higbee, they can't
probably
do
not.
that. If they're going to hang on to Higbee and Hopkins, they can't do that. If they are cleaning house at the tight end spot, then I think they do pick a guy in the second. But Alexis, if my money were on anybody, the type of like teeter, I feel like it's a Cameron Latu, a Jaheim Bell, somebody like that, probably in the middle of the draft. I don't think that they'll spend a really big pick on a tight end unless they're totally done with Higbee and Hopkins.
I agree. I think there's obviously several more pressing needs than tight end. Again, there isn't even like, if I had my pick, I mentioned all those guys, like Darnell Washington, Sam Laporta, even Tucker Kraft. Well, Tucker Kraft, I think is probably a 3rd round pick. I don't see him going the 2nd round. Maybe
Kraft
3rd,
could be an
4th.
option.
But yeah, he could be an option, but it's going to be somebody like him or like Latu, like you said, or maybe, Bell. I really like Jaleel Billingsley out of Texas.
That's one I would say.
Cade Stover out of Ohio State. So it's going to be something like that, because I think I am pretty much offensive line or bust in the 2nd round. I said today, I think pretty much everybody on the Rams offensive line, including the starters from last year, job is on the line, in my opinion. I think what we have seen this year has proven what we've been saying for about 3 seasons now, and it's a philosophy I think for a lot of football fans. It's like offensive line is the most important position in the NFL. I know it's like theoretically like really quarterback, I get it, but like nothing happens without a good offensive line. I'm open to an upgrade at any position. I look at guy like Brian Allen, for example, is just hurt way too much. And I like Brian Allen when he's healthy. I think he's a solid center. Don't get me wrong. This is not me dissing Brian Allen, but he's not
Yeah, I mean, that's a big deal.
A lot. We saw it in the game, and he just can't stay healthy. So look out for Jarrett Patterson out of Notre Dame. I know everyone's sick of me bringing up Notre Dame players, but I can't help it. I'm very familiar with them, but he also is good. So I'm not saying it'll be him, but I'm saying look at guys like that. I could very easily see early second, early third round, the Rams going and grabbing a starting center. I'm honestly okay with drafting a starting left tackle in the second round. I mean, Noteboom can also play guard. Okay, I just think that any position on the Rams offensive line is eligible for an upgrade. That's, I think, where we're at. And then obviously it would be nice maybe if there's a good pass rusher that falls to the early second. That's a weird position for the draft next year, I'll say, from what I've seen. Because it's like there's like this very high tier group of guys of edge rushers, and then I feel like there's a big drop off. And that just might be me needing to watch more prospects. But it's kind of like, I feel like there's always a few positions each draft where it's like very top heavy. And I think that that's the case with edge in this draft.
Yeah,
I could be wrong. That's just what I see.
Well, I mean, we're talking the future. I think Leonard Floyd is the same type of conversation as Allen Robinson, except I think he's way more productive than Allen Robinson, has been there longer. But it's the same type of conversation. The contract starts to get a little bit ridiculous. You're talking $20 million. I mean, I could see them trading him, and there would be a market for him. The guy can definitely rush the quarterback. But you know what is very interesting is that they cut Terrell Lewis. Justin Hollins is out the door. They have Daniel Hardy starting to play a little bit, right? But the real wild card here, 2 guys. Keir Thomas, who we liked in the preseason. He worked his way onto the 53-man roster, and we thought he was done because he missed one play in one of the games or whatever, and he got cut. But he was on the practice squad, and then he got an opportunity to play recently a little bit more, and he showed you some things in the run game. And then another guy is a guy that's been around, and he's been, a little bit of a fan favorite, Michael Hoyt. It took me about a year to figure out that's actually how you say his name and not Hocht or Hoyt or whatever. Or Hecht, yeah. But
Hecht.
Yeah, the former UDFA out of Brown is an athletic freak. He's 310 pounds. He plays, he was an interior defense lineman. Now he's playing outside linebacker. We talked about earlier. He's out in coverage. He's covering receivers. Alexis, he's 310. They want to drop him down, and I think they're going to try to drop him down to 275. And if they can do that, and I mean, he's going to be faster. I mean, they might have something here with him. They really might. I mean, they might have like a Trey Hendrickson type of talent here. I'm not kidding. So it's funny because even in a season where you're thinking the Rams are doing everything wrong, they're getting rid of all these guys, they find a guy like Michael Hoyt. But I think it does kind of change a little bit how you're going to draft. He doesn't fit the prototypical Rams outside linebacker at all, based on the 310 pound, frame. But, I do think he gives them something where they at least feel good enough where, we can ride with Hoyt. And then if we don't trade Floyd, then we got Hoyt and Floyd, Hardy, get some guys late round. But if they're not sold on him, they could go after some guys. We've talked about it. We've texted about it, like Foskey from Notre Dame. Andre Carter II would be awesome out of Army. He just got confirmed, by the way. He can declare for the NFL draft. They rewrote that whole bill and everything, the United States government, and he can actually waive his mandatory 2 years of service in the Army until after his career. So good for him. We'll see. I mean, I could still see him going in the first round, but that could be an option in the second if he falls. Derek Hall out of Auburn, just some guys, Zach Harrison out of Ohio State, but the point is they are going to have options. They're going to have to figure things out. Those two guys, Kiera Thomas and mainly Michael Hoyt, have kind of changed how they look at their room, I think, though. I think they're going to stick by those guys. And if you think for a second they're not, look at Jonah Williams, look at Marquise Copeland, look at these guys that come out of nowhere and now they have legit roles and they're trusted. And I think it's just another one of those things. With, talking about edge, and we talked about tight end, all that, we talk about offensive line. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they, look at the defensive line, because you have two guys that are about to hit free agency. You got A'Shawn Robinson, who is 28 years old. He is an absolute beast in the run game. He's an absolute stud, but he just tore his meniscus. So how much is that going to affect his contract? Can the Rams get him back at a cheaper value? I think so. Then you look at Greg Gaines. I think everybody knows who Greg Gaines is now. That's not necessarily the greatest thing for the Rams' hopes of signing him back, but Greg Gaines is an absolute freak, and he has taken up the mantle of the main man in the middle without Aaron Donald. And I think his development, I don't know if you're in agreement with me, Alexis. I know there are probably some great guys in the draft. I don't think you can let Greg Gaines hit that market. I really don't. I think that's somebody that is very pivotal. And as long as you have Aaron Donald, you owe it to him to go out and win a ring. And this is not the time to cut costs on the defensive line. I think you got to bring back Greg Gaines, figure it out. He's absolutely worth it. Spotrac had him at about an $8 million average annual value. I think, to me, you got to bring him back, and you got to see if you can bring back A'Shawn. But if not, Bobby Brown has played well recently. Jonah Williams, like I mentioned, Marquise Copeland, like I mentioned. So they have some guys that they like. But I just don't think you can, you can't afford to let Gaines go. And I think A'Shawn is a bigger need than people realize in the interior.
I agree. Let's end it on that note. That was a good way to wrap up the defense. I mean, yeah, guys, like this is the mode that we're in now. I'm not, I don't want to say I'm excited about it, but I am excited about it. Like, I'm not excited that the Rams got eliminated, but we do love draft season. We do love talking about these guys, and a lot of these guys will be on our show. If you are new to the show, every year, Jake and I interview draft prospects. I mean, last year we had over 50 guys in total since I've been doing the show. I think
probably
we're
300.
over 250, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Probably 300 draft prospects. A lot of the guys, that we draft, most of the guys
Keyshawn Nixon
that we interview.
The return?
I botched that. Most of the guys.
He was one of our last interviews of that class.
Yeah. Yep. We interviewed him. Some of the guys even end up on the Rams. Hey, Quentin Lake we had on last season. The Rams drafted him. Bryce Perkins we interviewed, then ended up on the Rams. Terrell Burgess was on our show. We interviewed him during the draft, and then he came back a couple times. We
interviewed him when he became a Ram.
Yeah. So a lot of guys that we interview, obviously we interview so many guys that, I can't say that half the guys we interview end up on the show, on the Rams, but I would love that because we become friends with everybody who comes on the show, which is bittersweet because then we have to cheer against them at least some point during the season. But yeah, so I'm excited to get into these guys. Like I said, a lot of them will come on our show, especially guys who we think have a shot, at being drafted by the Rams. That's like our first priority.
Got named to the Pro Bowl.
Yes, Ryan Stonehouse was on our show. And that was a guy who I thought for sure
LA, man.
was
I don't know.
on the Rams. The punter. He did. And look at him, Pro Bowl punter as a rookie. I mean, so good. Great guy. Yeah, but this is the mode that we're in, guys. I mean, we're going to still cover the games, don't get me wrong, the rest of the season. I know there's not very many left, but we'll still talk about it because it is important to look at these guys for next season and to build upon positive momentum for the future. So we'll still report on the games, but we also will be talking about some draft stuff, guys that we think the Rams will go after, things that we're seeing, especially guys that you bring up to us that you want us to cover, because we are starting, I think, to get, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about that guy? And a lot of them I've seen, a lot of them I haven't. So I have to now look at my list and go watch film on some of these guys so I can report back to you. But yeah, guys, that's going to do it. Sorry, that was a really bad ending. That was just me. Oh yeah, let's talk about that real quick. Okay, so Stafford isn't retiring. That was confirmed by him on his wife's podcast. She asked him, "Are you retiring?" And he straight up said, "No, he is not retiring." And our friend Holden tweeted that out. And then that tweet was shared by people, Ian Rappaport and a billion people. So that's really good news. And that is going to impact, obviously, how we view this Rams team going forward. Because I think if Stafford's not retiring, Sean's not retiring.
No,
I don't think that Aaron Donald's going to go out on this note. I don't see that happening. No. So I think that that's a positive sign. So we'll be talking about that a lot as well, guys. I know that everybody's bummed. I'm bummed. Jake, I know you're bummed. Like, it's not the type of season we wanted. Some things are just out of our control. We leave it up to the football gods, and things don't work out sometimes. Sometimes they do. Look at last season.
The Rams got eliminated from the playoffs, and they win the Super Bowl. That's nuts.
And won a Super Bowl.
But
here's the thing. I think they're coming back with a vengeance next year. I think they are furious. So that's a good thing. Like, we do have to go through all, kind of the end of the season, which is probably not going to be very fun for us, the type of football we're going to witness. But we do have an easier schedule. And like I said, I think that teams who have nothing to lose, now the Rams don't have to worry about they're done, right? It's like their season's over. I think that allows them to get more creative. It allows them to try some new things. I think that we're going to see a lot of young talent. Yeah. Hopefully this is the time, get them in there, see what they can do, in a regular season NFL game. It is kind of, there are positives, we get to now build off
be a new secondary,
the ground up.
I mean,
just seeing
there
what
are some guys that I definitely want to get more opportunities, like a Jacoby Durant. Obviously, you have Jalen, but I think safety, I'd be open to giving Quentin Lake and Russ East the nod.
Yeah, what the heck? Yeah, that's I'm just at the point, I would just really go for it. I would just shake it up. I'd be like, just try a new thing every game. Honestly, really just see what you have, because you don't have anything else to lose. And things, when you have a season where things are really didn't work out,
we're also getting to that point in the season.
Something's got to give.
Be
why not
bleak,
try it?
But if you suffer an injury at bad enough, you could miss most of next season, if not all of it. So you got to be careful.
Right. Well, yeah, that's why you want to protect the guys that
and
for sure are coming back next season. You know what I mean?
Honestly,
you want to protect those guys,
but they view him as a contributor. So maybe it's honestly a blessing in disguise. They don't have to worry about him now. He has a strained calf, but that's something that goes away. He'll be back. It's better than him playing and then tearing his ACL or something, and then he's gone for all of next season. So yeah, really at this point, the next 3 games are just hoping for no injuries and for this team to play hard. And while they do that, we'll do our job of bringing you coverage, and we'll try to talk about losses or wins or meaningless games. But I'm excited for the podcast because, Alexis, I feel like it's going to really quickly turn into, so what did you learn this week when you were watching tape? And then be like, yeah, I could see him fitting in this way, or you know what I mean? So I think Yeah, it kind of turns
Yeah,
into
we're
like
getting into
almost a
that mode.
research project. And I think it's almost like kind of, hey, this guy would fit for the Rams, having a discussion. Because Alexis, this is the first time since this is the first time in the history of our time together on this show that we've been able to get into the draft this quickly. I mean, the Rams were eliminated the last game of the year in 2019.
That's true.
So,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not something to brag about,
is upon us.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make the best of it, guys. I know that this episode was so weird. I feel like this wasn't my best episode for you guys, but it's like I'm just at a weird headspace because it's like there's so many different like lanes right now in my head that Cam Akers could definitely find one. Sorry, that was not a dig. That was a dig, but I didn't mean it in a negative way. I'm just like there's just so many different things going in my mind right now. I'm scatterbrained. Yeah, thanks. Come see me next Saturday.
I don't know.
I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna say it. But no, I just feel like there's so many like things now because it's like so many things that you could talk about. Like, now that the season's over, it's like you kind of don't have to like prioritize. It's like, where do you want to start? You know what I mean? We don't have to do this math game that we've been doing for the past couple of weeks. But thank God, we're like, this team needs to win and this team needs to lose.
That wasn't good for your anxiety anyway.
It's like, nope, none of it matters anymore. Nothing matters. No, it wasn't. And it was math, which freaks me out. And it was like, and it puts you in a weird spot because it's like, I don't like having to watch teams hoping they lose. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like to have to turn on a game and like, just for the sole purpose of cheering against somebody. It's like not
I'm in agreement.
Fun thing to do. So
now that the Rams are out, I'm kind of annoyed that I rooted for the Niners to lose.
But other than that,
so the Rams would still have a chance. When in reality, I just would have rather had Seattle win the division.
$49ers
they look very good though. I got to give them credit.
Pain. Add insult to injury. They look very good. They do look very good. Okay. I don't want to end it on us saying the 49ers look good. So what else can we bring
Matthew Stafford will return to the Rams offense in 2023.
Oh, you know what? He will. And also the Arizona Cardinals are eliminated from the playoffs, if anyone didn't know. There you go. Arizona Cardinals.
Well,
Arizona Cardinals are also eliminated from the playoffs. Did you know that? Yeah, but that's a good note.
Yeah, but
we're not the
like,
only team in the NFC West
schedule,
to
or
be eliminated.
The second to last place schedule. I mean, I think at that point.
I don't know.
Let me end it on the most brutal way. The Rams still would have to play Green Bay in Green Bay next year if the Packers and Rams align in the division.
Cool. Okay, I'm ending this before we just before people might have lost us 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, but guys, anyways, we will be back after Christmas. So the Rams next game is on Christmas against the Broncos. I am traveling for Christmas, so I will not be able to record until a few days after that. So yeah, that will be our next episode. We will, cover that game and, kind of did what we did today, talk kind of about the future and the draft. So as always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Kraft. You can follow Jake at JKBogan. And guys, have a very, very happy holiday weekends. Be safe. I hope that everybody spends time with their loved ones. We will be back after the Christmas Day game. But until then, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.
If you haven't joined Prize Picks yet, you need to do it this season. Prize Picks allows you to pick up to 5 player props, and it gives you the option to 10x your winnings. Look at this right now. Tom Brady right now, for a limited time only, is a free square, because unless he gets hurt, he is going to be getting that 0.5. I'm going to select Tom Brady. I'm going to select Josh Allen going 275.5. Matthew Stafford going 265.5. We'll just throw Lamar Jackson in here, and let's just throw Justin Fields gets more than 191.5. So what you do here, you put more, or less if you believe, Lamar Jackson gets less than that. And there you go, 10x your winnings if this pays out. You will actually get paid out even if you only hit 3 of them. You'll get 0.4 times your money back. You'll get 2 times. You'll double your money if you get at least 4 out of 5. Deposit today by using our promo code DTRAMS, and you'll get up to a $100 bonus match.